At 16, my family kicked me out after my adopted sister framed me. 10 years later, she confessed, but it was too late. They'd already destroyed me. My family eliminated me overnight because of a single untruth. After all, the truth has finally come out. I'm not looking for pity. I just want to tell you how everything went down. Ryan, a 29-year-old guy, was 18 the night my life ended without dying. My family was having one of those large Saturday meals. Grandparents, uncles, cousins, the entire family. My parents enjoyed putting on shows when the house was filled. Mom was always in her element when there were others watching her, chatting loudly and boasting about how close our family is. Dad barbecued meat outside, while my brother and I carried chairs from the garage. And then there was Claire, my adoptive sister. My parents brought her home when she was 10 because they had always desired a female. She fit well in from the beginning. Quiet, courteous, and bashful. I used to help her with her homework, teach her how to ride a bike, and defend her when other kids mocked her about being adopted. I never thought of her as anything other than my sister. That night, she was acting odd. She wasn't eating and kept fidgeting with her hands. I believed she was either unwell or exhausted. After dinner, while everyone was in the living room, she stood up, shivering, and announced that she needed to tell everyone something. I recall her voice. It cracked like if she was about to weep. Then she said it. Ryan. He forced me. It did not even register. Everyone froze. The room fell silent, save for the ticking of the clock. My brain did not process it at first. I assumed she meant something different. Perhaps this was a bad joke. Perhaps she was puzzled. Then she said, "I'm pregnant." My father's hand was on me before I could say anything. His punch landed on my face so hard that everything became white. My teeth buzzed and my ears rang as I landed on the floor. My mother started screaming as if someone had died. My brother stood there shaking his head and moaning. "Ryan, what the heck is wrong with you? You are nasty." "Dad." I did not. I attempted, but the next hit arrived before I could finish. "You sick bastard," he shouted, cheeks flushed and eyes wild. "You brought humiliation to our family." Claire was screaming into her mother's arms, shaking, and stating she was terrified. My aunt drew her close, whispering, "It's okay, sweetie. You're safe now." My brother Nathan came forward, spitting straight on my shoe. "Get out," he snarled. "You don't deserve to breathe the same air as us." I looked around at everyone's looks. People I had known all my life. None of them treated me like family anymore. Simply disgusted. I said, "She's lying." My voice broke. "I swear on my life she is lying." Nobody cared. My mother yelled, "Don't even mention her name. Don't talk to her." I believe my uncle phoned the cops. When the cop arrived, I was sitting on the porch, bleeding from my lips. One of them asked my father if I was the suspect, and he simply nodded without looking at me. They didn't even cuff me harshly. They could see I was merely a child who appeared half dead. Still, riding in the rear seat with the sirens blaring was like being buried alive. At the station, they asked questions I couldn't comprehend. "When did this occur? What did you do that night? Has she said no?" I kept saying that it never occurred. None of it. They did not book me. There was no proof. Just nothing. They let me go in the morning. I recall one of them mumbling the words, "statutory case," under his breath. Claire was 18 and I was 16, just a year difference. Yet they had to ask every question in the book. They took statements, contacted a social services representative, and even checked timelines on our phones. In the end, there was nothing to hold me up. So they sent me home with a warning to be available for further interrogation. But when I went outdoors, the world was already aware. Our town wasn't large. By morning, half of it had already determined that I was guilty. I didn't go home immediately. I walked till my legs gave out. When I returned, my belongings were heaped on the front yard. Clothes, school books, and my rucksack. My father stood at the entrance like a guard. "Get out," he said. His tone was not hostile this time. Just chilly. "You are done here." "Dad, please, you recognize me." "I would never." "Don't call me that. You aren't my son anymore." I attempted to grab for my mother through the doorway. She turned aside, cradling Claire as if she were a victim of a murder scene. Nathan slammed the door behind them. I stood there. My hands were so shaky that I couldn't pick up my luggage. That night, my phone vibrated. It was Lily, my girlfriend. We had been together a year. She knew me better than anyone else. She whispered through tears. I believe you, Jack. I swear, I do. But my parents won't allow me speak to you. They believe it's true. They stated if I ever see you again, they'll contact the police. Please do not do this. I said, she wept. I apologize, I cannot lose them. Then she hung up. I gazed at the phone's screen until it became black. That was the last time I had heard her voice. I stayed in my car for the remainder of the night behind a petrol station 2 towns away. I peered at the shattered window, watching rain fall in crooked patterns. In less than 12 hours, I went from being a regular kid with a family, a girlfriend, and a future to being viewed as a criminal by everyone. Every time headlights drove by, I assumed it was my father's truck. I assumed he'd pull me back to complete what he started, but no one arrived. When the sun eventually rose, I peered in my rearview mirror. My face was bruised. My garment still had blood on it. And I discovered something simple but significant. Nobody was coming to help me. And that's when it struck me. My family hadn't merely thrown me away, they eliminated me. That notion stuck in my chest like a stone. I drove through the night without a plan or a map. I just had clothes on my back, a bag, and $250 in my wallet. I drove till the gas light flashed red. The engine coughed at a sign reading, "Welcome to Maplewood." I didn't care where I was. I stopped. Into a parking space behind a row of businesses that appeared half abandoned. My hands shook with hunger and cold. I'd been surviving on vending machine chips for days. A help wanted sign was attached to a diner window across the street. I stood there gazing at it, trying to work up the nerve to step in. When I walked in, the bell above the door chimed. A guy stood behind the counter, with big shoulders, a gray beard, and deep creases on his face. "Can I help you?" he said, his voice raw as gravel. "I saw the sign," I said. "I can wash dishes. Do anything, really." He examined me. My clothing was crumpled. My shoes still had muck from the road. "Have you ever worked in the kitchen?" "No, sir." He grunted. "You seem hungry." "I am fine." I lied. He groaned and nodded to the back. "My name's Paul. Sinks are there. You begin right now. You are given a supper at the end of your shift." That was it. No questions, no paperwork, just work. The kitchen was tiny, noisy, and heated. I cleaned plates and pans till my hands were raw. Paul served me his first meal, a half-eaten burger and fries from a client who did not complete. I didn't care. I devoured it like if I hadn't eaten in weeks. When it was time to close, I tried to offer him the plate back, saying I'd find somewhere to sleep. Paul cleaned his hands and added, "There's a room upstairs. It ain't pretty, but it's got a bed and a lock. You can work it off." That was the first gesture of compassion I'd seen in weeks. The room was small, perhaps 12 feet across, with a stained mattress, a flickering bulb and wallpaper peeling from the corners, but it was a roof, and the floor didn't move beneath me. I dropped into bed and slept for 14 hours straight. Over the following 3 days, I settled into a groove. Paul didn't say much, but he'd grunt something like, "Good job." Those words were more meaningful than any apology I'd ever received. One night, approximately 2 weeks in, I went downstairs to lock up and discovered Paul sitting at the counter reading the paper. He glanced at me and asked, "Kid, what's your story?" I froze. "What do you mean?" "I got a client in here today, a trucker traveling through who said he saw your photo in a paper a few towns over. Some family issue." My stomach plummeted. I began shaking. "That is not what it appears to be. It is a falsehood. My sister is my adoptive sister. She made it up. I swear I never." Paul raises his hand. "Calm down, kid. I don't care what they say." I blinked at him. "You don't?" He leaned back on his stool. "Everybody's got a story. You're here working. That's what matters. Keep your head down, do your job, and rebuild your life. The rest will sort itself out." It took a second for those words to sink in. For the first time since that night, I did not feel like a monster. That night I sat on the side of the bed, gazing at the damaged wall and attempting to understand it. Paul did not know me, but he gave me a chance. My own family couldn't do it. One night I was scrolling through my phone's contact list. I hesitated before phoning home because I needed to hear my mother's voice. Perhaps enough time had passed. Perhaps they recognized the truth. She answered the third ring. "Mom, it's me," I said gently. Silence. "Ryan." Yeah, I just wanted you to know I'm okay. I found a job. I'm. Don't call here again, she told me. Her voice crackled. Your father does not want your name spoken in this house, she said before hanging up. I gazed at the phone till the screen faded. That was the last time I attempted. Weeks became months. I worked double shifts and saved what I could. Paul began teaching me tiny things. How to repair a leaky pipe, patch a vent, and inspect a thermostat. Learn to fix things, kid. It's the only way to survive, he'd tell you. Curiosity overcame me one night after closure. I searched for Claire's name. There she was, smiling in images, tummy round, relatives surrounding her, clutching pink balloons that read, "It's a girl." My mother stood by her, pleased, carrying a baby carriage-shaped cake. My brother was in the corner of the frame, smiling as if nothing had occurred. My throat stung. My stomach twisted so badly that I had to close the laptop. Then I determined that I would never be Ryan Winter again. After that night, something inside me turned off. No more attempting to explain. No more waiting for someone to come around. I had had enough of being the version of myself that they had buried. I put myself into working at the diner. I'd arrive before daylight and depart well after it closed. I repaired leaking faucets, cleaned grease traps, and learned how to replace filters in outdated air vents. Paul noticed. One afternoon, when I was unclogging the sink with half my arm down the drain, he said, "You ever thought about learning this stuff for real?" I looked up, perplexed. Like plumbing? He chuckled. Nah, bigger. Heating, cooling, air systems, HVAC. People always need heat or cold, kid. That skill feeds you forever. The way he said it stayed with me. I was bored of cleaning the plates. I wanted something permanent, something that could not be taken away from me. A few weeks later, Paul handed me a leaflet for the community college down the road. Night classes, he explained, slipping it over the counter. You'd be good at it. You pay what you can, and I'll cover the rest until you're on your feet. I looked at the page for a long time. Nobody has ever volunteered to help me in this way before, not even my own relatives. I joined up the next day. The first several months were terrible. I'd work 12-hour shifts at the diner, then take the bus to night school, struggling to remain awake during lectures on compressors and coils. Every time I mended anything, whether cold air poured out of a vent or a damaged machine roared back to life, I felt as if I was repairing myself piece by piece. Paul continued pushing me. Don't just get good, he stressed. Get so good they can't ignore you. When I got my GED, I was nearly halfway through the HVAC program. I started making modest repairs on the side. Paul's home, the diner's vents, and a few regulars. When the certificate arrived in the mail, Paul hung it in the diner's corridor like it was his own child's diploma. Not bad for a runaway, he commented, touching my shoulder. I laughed, even if hearing that word stung. With Paul's aid, I was able to save enough money to purchase a used pickup truck and a set of used tools. I left the cafe and began working full-time for a local HVAC firm. One summer afternoon, a coworker named Chris was accused of taking money from a client's kitchen counter. The employer was prepared to terminate him on the spot. Something about Chris's expression, the same terror I saw in the mirror 12 years ago, drew me in. Check the vent, I stated. Everyone gazed at me. I went up and removed the cover, and sure enough, the envelope had been sucked halfway down the duct by the return air. The client had probably placed it too near to the vent. Chris nearly cried. The boss apologized to the client. After that, Chris shook my hand as if I had saved his life. Paul learned about it via a source and phoned me that night. Good job, kid, he remarked. You didn't just fix air, you fixed a mess. That's what separates men from mechanics. It has stayed with me. Years went by like that. Work, sleep, eat, and work again. It was straightforward, predictable, and safe. But occasionally when I returned home at night, I felt a vacant place inside me, like if another existence was still buried somewhere. One night, while completing invoicing, I opened an old account that I hadn't used in years. My hands trembled when I logged into social media. I should not have done it. My family was standing in front of a birthday cake, smiling and laughing, with a small girl, her daughter, who appeared to be about 10. My mother was holding her, and my father put his arm over them as if nothing had occurred. My brother was in the background, beaming as if he hadn't spit at my feet once. The comment said, "Happy birthday to our miracle girl." Family is everything. Family. As I looked through the images, my chest pained. And she looked cheerful and dazzling, as if she had never damaged anyone's life. I closed the laptop and sat in the darkness, shivering. For years, I feared they would break apart without me. However, they didn't. They just replaced me. That night, I sat in my truck in the parking lot after finishing my shift and made a decision. I went home and erased every old account with the name Smith. I broke ties with the past as if it were a loose wire. By morning, Ryan Winter, I had filed the papers for a formal name change. It was my grandmother's maiden name, and she was the only one who had ever treated me with genuine respect before to this. When the new ID arrived several weeks later, I gazed at it for a long time. The image appeared to be stronger, tougher, and no longer resembled a boy. That was the day I stopped fleeing from what they had done to me and began creating something they could never destroy. 12 years later, I founded my own firm, Winter Heating and Air. Only a few vehicles, 3 staff, and a regular stream of clients who trusted my work. We were not flashy, but we were dependable. Life had finally leveled off. Everything began to split open anew in the early summer. I was working on an old air unit behind a bakery, perspiration streaming down my back, when my phone began to vibrate non-stop in my pocket. Unknown number with hometown area code. I disregarded it twice. The third time, it would not stop. I cleaned my hands and said, "Yeah, this is Winter." There was a little hush, followed by a voice I hadn't heard in over a decade. "Ryan." My chest clenched. "Ryan, who's this?" "It's me, Lily." I paused for a second. Everything around me, the fan noise, the street sounds, had vanished. "Lily, how did you?" She let out a sigh. "I know I shouldn't call, but I thought you should hear this from someone who actually believes you." That line alone made my throat tighten. She went on, "Claire's been arrested." I blinked. "Arrested for what?" "For lying," she said. "For accusing another guy in the same way she did to you." I leaned against the vehicle, woozy. What?" The man she accused this time fought back. "He hired a lawyer. All of it. It turns out she made up the entire tale again. During the inquiry, she confessed to the first one. To you. She admitted to lying back then too." The words struck like a sledgehammer. I had fantasized hearing anything like that for years, but it didn't feel right. There was no relief. Only quiet. Lily kept speaking, her voice trembling. She claimed authorities she became pregnant following a one-night affair with Colin, a local heroin dealer. He vanished when she told him. She panicked and accused you since you were present, and everybody believed her. "Ryan, they've cleared your name." Officially, I could not talk. My hand got numb while holding the phone. She paused. "I just thought you should know. I'm sorry it took this long." "Thank you," I eventually said, my voice low. Before I could say anything further, she muttered, "I'm married now. Kids. But I never forgot what they did to you." I smiled faintly, but she couldn't see it. "You were the only one who believed me, Lily. You don't have to feel bad for that." We spoke for another minute, uncomfortable yet gentle. Then she said her goodbyes and that was it. I sat in the vehicle for over an hour, looking at the driving wheel. I wasn't sure whether I wanted to yell, weep, or laugh. My identity was cleared, but it was 12 years too late. By daybreak, the call had begun. Private numbers come first, followed by emails. My company's inbox even received one with the subject line, "Please call us back." Curiosity got the best of me once. I answered a phone number I didn't recognize. "Ryan," a weak voice replied. I immediately recognized that voice, said my mother. "Don't hang up, please," she pleaded hastily. "Claire told the police everything." "We didn't know." I hung up. "They didn't know. They didn't care to know." Later that week, a local newspaper requested a statement. I said nothing. I wasn't interested in sympathy or publicity. I wanted something better. Silence. But the stillness did not endure. My brother then texted me, stating he'd been young and dumb and wished we could start over. My father left a voicemail. "We just want to see you, son. We made mistakes. That's okay. Mistakes happen when you neglect someone's birthday. What they did was their choice. So, instead of responding, I sent letters. Not what they anticipated. No forgiveness. No sweet words. Just the reality. I told them about the nights I slept in my car, shivering, regarding the moldy room above the restaurant. About Paul, the stranger who took me in after my own family tossed me away. I explained to them how it felt to burn my school ID because their names made me ill. How it felt to see pictures of them laughing around Claire and her daughter as I was cleaning oil pans for scraps. I informed them they hadn't only ruined my reputation. They destroyed my home, my trust, and any remaining sense of tranquility. Every letter concluded the same way. You didn't believe me when I told you the truth. Now you can live with it. I never mailed them. I just piled the letters in a shoebox and stored them in my desk drawer. That night, as I sat in my workshop reading over bills, I glanced around at the tools, trucks and company name painted on the walls, all of which I had constructed myself. Everything I had lost was gone forever. But I couldn't lose everything I'd worked for. For the first time in years, I didn't feel completely erased. I felt written again. They did not do it. I did. However, peace does not last very long. When the truth about Claire went across town, the same individuals who had thrown me away suddenly recalled my existence. It began with a knock on my office door one afternoon. I was working on a thermostat unit on my desk when I heard someone yell my name, Ryan. I stopped. I turned, and there she was. My mother. She appeared smaller and older, as if someone had sucked the life out of her. Her hair was gray at the roots, and her hands shook as she grasped a foil-covered casserole dish. I made your favorite, she said quietly. Chicken and rice. You used to love it. I was unable to move for a brief moment. The fragrance reached me and my gut wrenched. I remembered the last time she had prepared it. The night before, everything exploded. I stood up gently. Why are you here? Tears flooded her eyes. I just want to see you to say sorry. We were wrong. Claire lied. We know that now. I leaned on the countertop. You're 12 years too late. She wiped her nose. I didn't know what to believe back then. She was weeping. And your father, I interrupted her. You didn't even ask me. You didn't let me speak. You kicked me out and told me never to call again. She was getting closer. Please, Ryan. Don't call me that, I retorted. You lost that right. She flinched as if the words had touched her physically. I pointed to the door. You should go. She paused and placed the dish on the counter. At least eat this, please. I gazed at it. Throw it out when you leave. I felt nothing when the door closed behind her. There is no wrath, no grief, nothing. 2 days later, my father showed up. I was out on a repair call when I noticed him standing outside the office, leaning against his truck as if he owned the building. He grinned as if we'd had a normal quarrel years ago. Hey son. I did not respond. You've done good for yourself, he replied, gazing around. Business, trucks, employees. I'm proud of you. Get to the point, I instructed. He moved his jaw. Your mother's not doing great. She cries every day. I assumed we could all sit down and clear the air. Cleared the air. I nearly laughed. You beat me and threw me out. You left me homeless. You cleared the air that night when you told me I wasn't your son. He was fuming. I was angry. You have to understand it was a different time. Things looked bad. So, you hit first. Asked questions. Never. His expression hardened. You don't have to keep holding on to hate, son. I'm not holding on to hate, I said, taking out my phone. I'm holding on to self-respect. He frowned. What are you? I pushed a button. Security. I've got someone trespassing at the front. Big guy in a red jacket. His demeanor immediately shifted. You're calling security on your own father? You're not my father, I said. You're a stranger who ruined my life. A few minutes later, the security guard from the adjoining building approached and ordered him to leave. Dad cursed all the way to his truck, slammed the door, and drove out of the lot. When the stillness returned, I just sat at my desk, gazing at the exact location where he had stood. Meanwhile, rumor reached me through old acquaintances. My family was breaking apart. Dad had lost his job at the company for shouting at a supervisor. According to reports, he was almost detained for it. Mom hardly left her house. Neighbors claimed she was unwell and no longer herself. My brother's wife had taken their children and moved in with her parents after learning what had transpired years before. Everything they'd established, every fantasy of being the ideal family, was crumbling. People love to suggest that karma takes time. I'd say it arrived right on time. One afternoon, my employee Sam entered the office carrying a tiny package. "Hey boss, this was sitting outside the door," he told me. Inside, there were scores of notes, each with my name, Ryan Winter, scribbled in unsteady handwriting. There's no return address. I didn't need to open them to find out who they were from. My mother had always been theatrical about her penmanship. I brought the box into the rear room, placed it on a shelf above the storage bins, and then walked away. That night, I sat in my office and glanced up at the window, where those letters were. I considered all of the phrases within, which were most likely apologies, justifications, or maybe Bible verses about forgiveness. However, forgiving is a luxury for those who have not spent nights sleeping in their car, wondering why no one believed them. I did not seek closure. I desired distance. So I kept the letters sealed. Every last one. I kept them in the box, locked up. They sought forgiveness because it made them feel lighter. Not because they earned it. They did not want me. They want atonement. And I was not giving it to them. I gazed up at the sky and said to myself, "They erased me once. Now I will erase them forever." I assumed that was all. The end. However, the past has a way of finding gaps to crawl through. It was 3 months later when I received the letter. Plain white envelope with no return address. The inside contained a single piece of paper. "Claire Harrison requests to meet with you in Maple Ridge Correctional Facility." For a long time, I simply gazed at it. Her name appeared odd on print, like if it no longer belonged in my life. I dumped it in the garbage, then got it out and threw it away again. But the concept remained. For the last 12 years, I'd pondered what I'd say to her if I ever saw her again. Perhaps it was time to find out. So a week later, I drove to the jail. It was 2 hours away, in the middle of nowhere. The guard at the front desk read my ID, buzzed me in, and brought me to a drab visiting room that smelled like antiseptic and stale coffee. I sat down at a metal table, my hands flat on the top. Others around me muttered quietly. Wives, children, and parents were all visiting loved ones. I was not one of them. Then she stepped inside. I scarcely recognized her. She was slimmer, almost delicate in appearance. Her complexion was pale, her hair was tightly pushed back, her face was lined, and she looked fatigued. The girl who screamed in front of our family, gripping her tummy and calling me a monster, suddenly resembled a ghost. She sat across from me, her eyes flickering up briefly before dropping to the table. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. I didn't answer. She twisted her hands in her lap. "You look different," she added after a pause. "Older." "You look guilty," I remarked. Her eyes filled instantaneously. "I deserve that." "No," I said quietly. "You deserve worse." She nodded slowly, tears forming. "I understand, and I apologize. For everything. For lying. For wrecking your life?" "Why?" I inquired. My voice came out low and steady. "Why me?" She glanced down, her voice shaking. "Because you were safe to blame. You were calm and never fought anyone. I worried because I knew everyone would believe me since you were the sweet and easy one." I leaned forwards. "You panicked, so you destroyed my life. You panicked, so you made your own brother the villain?" Her shoulders trembled. "I didn't think it would go that far. I thought maybe you'd just deny it and people would forget and I'd get sympathy until I figured something out." "Sympathy," I reiterated. "You got that? You got a house full of people loving you, protecting you, throwing parties for you while I slept in a car behind a gas station." She put her fists against her eyes. I know what I did, Colin." She paused, her breath seizing. "Colin was the one who actually got me pregnant. He was a traitor. I slept with him once. I informed him I was pregnant, and he laughed. Said I was insane. He threatened to flee if I informed anybody. And he did. I wasn't sure what to do. So I blamed you since you were present." I simply gazed at her. I didn't feel furious anymore. Simply hollow. "You ruined my life," I said calmly. "Do you realize you took everything from me, including my family, girlfriend, and name? You turned me into a monster and made me afraid to trust anyone again." She cried and wiped her nose with her sleeve. "I've thought about you every day in here," she said quietly. "I hate myself for it. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see your face from that night." "Good," I said frankly. "You should see it. You should never stop seeing it. She glanced up in desperation. There is something more. My daughter was never told the truth. Claire responded. Mom said it would confuse her to change the story. So she still thinks it's you. I gazed at her, startled, even after all had been revealed. She nodded faintly. They argued she was too little to comprehend, and admitting they were wrong would only reopen old hurts. They'd rather retain the deception than face the consequences of their actions. Claire mentioned seeing your photo. Older ones from before anything. She wonders why you haven't come around. That hurt her more than anything else, she said. Somewhere out there was a child, not mine, roaming around believing the same lie that ruined me. I rose up, my chair scrapping against the floor. Several folks turned to look. You don't get to tell me that, I said. You don't get to throw that on me now, like it's something I can fix. She extended a shaky hand. I'm sorry, Ryan. I really am. I can't undo it. I just needed you to know. I gazed at her and didn't feel anything. Not relief or closure, but the end of anything. You took 12 years from me, I remarked gently. I hope you never sleep peacefully again. She was weeping hard and choked on her words. I deserve it, she stated. All of it. I bent down slightly and caught her gaze one final time. You do. Then I turned and went away. The guards remained silent as they buzzed the door open. I got into my vehicle and sat there, hands grasping the steering wheel, looking at the fence in front of me. I expected to feel free after seeing her, like if I had won. But I did not. There was no win in it. It's just fatigue. When the truth is revealed, certain things remain unchanged. Some things remain fractured even after you stop caring. But when I started the engine and drove away, I knew something. Walking away, not forgiving, not exploding, simply leaving. That was its own type of strength. For the first time, I did not feel erased. I felt done. A year passed following that visit to the penitentiary, and life began to make more sense. I sold my previous modest house and purchased a new, nice one just outside of the city. 3 bedrooms, a fenced yard, nothing extravagant, but it was mine. Every wall, every nail was paid for with work I did myself. Then there was Olivia. I met her through a customer. She was a graphic designer who came in to redesign the company's logo. I hadn't planned on dating anyone, yet she exuded calmness. She didn't ask many questions about my background, just saying, whatever it was, you're not that guy anymore. We'd been together for a year now. She moved in with her cat, and I adopted a rescue dog named Edgar. Between the 3 of us, the place seemed alive again. Work, Olivia, Edgar, and tranquility. Then one morning, an envelope arrived in the mail without a return address. My stomach constricted. I assumed it was another apology from my family, but as I opened it, the name inside made me halt. Thomas Kenderson. Claire accused a second man. His penmanship was tidy, brief, and to the point. Mr. Winter, I'm filing a civil case against Claire for defamation and emotional damage. You deserve that justice too. My lawyer says your testimony would help both of us. If you're interested, call me. I read it twice. Then I phoned him in the afternoon. We went to a coffee shop the next day. He was about my age, perhaps a few years older. He shook my hand as if we had known each other our entire lives. Feels weird, doesn't it? He remarked, as if we were both affected by something. Yeah, I commented. But I guess we both survived it. We spent an hour chatting about everything. When he asked if I wanted to participate in the case, I said yes without hesitation. I'm in, I said. The case took months, but this time I wasn't fleeing or hiding. I appeared in court, sat across from Claire and spoke the truth, calmly, steadily, and without anger. I didn't even glance at them when I talked. The attorneys lay everything out. False charges, manipulation, emotional harm, and proof that she had done it again. When the judge finally ruled, the courtroom fell quiet. Walking out of the courthouse, I felt lighter than I had before. My reputation was officially clean. But it wasn't just that. It seemed like a ghost had finally ceased following me. For once, my name was not hidden in shame. It stood beside phrases like truth, justice, and vindication. Then the voicemail arrived. It was late, around midnight. I was wrapping up invoicing in my office when my phone rang. Unknown number with hometown area code. I almost ignored it, but it got to voicemail, and something compelled me to listen. Son, it's Thomas. I don't know if this number is even right anymore. Your mother found it online. I don't have much time. The doctors say it's cancer. Stage 4. I don't want anything. I swear. I just want to see you one last time before it's too late. The message concluded with a long pause and a trembling gasp. Please, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please, son. I sat there for a minute, gazing at my phone. Then I pressed play again. And then I erased it. Nor out of rage, nor out of vengeance, simply nothing. I recall the night he punched me. The sight in his eyes, the way he informed me I was no longer his kid. I recall sleeping in my car behind the gas station and tasting blood and rain. He chose the truth. Then I chose mine. I spoke to myself. They threw me out into the cold ones. Now I fix other people's air. That's irony, I guess. And peace. They erased me once, but I rebuilt myself. And this time, my story ends on my terms. Steady, quiet, and always north.